here to prove it, I'm ready to do it, I can't be afraid now. Put me on the stage now, I'm ready to rage now. I feel like an animal stuck in a cage and I'm ready to break out. My time, none of you people can tell me to stop. This time, like the last time, you better get ready to race to the top. Ready to do this.
Ladies and gentlemen, today on the show, The Wrestling Independent, we welcome Mr. Ken Anderson. It's not every day that you get a chance to talk to someone that you were a fan of as they were coming up through the ranks. Ken Anderson, storied career, and the reason that we have a chance to listen to him and that we have a chance to talk to him is with Midwest All-Star Wrestling is putting on this tremendous wrestling event this coming weekend. So if you're in the Minneapolis, Minnesota area, check them out. We have Ken Anderson coming in. They have Too Cold Scorpio, Kurt Angle, so many people that are coming in. You want to give them a check out, and the money is going to this fantastic women's domestic shelter for the indigenous women of the Minnesota, Minneapolis area. And Ken Anderson is on this show because really, if you listen to the episode, it's a story of this new chapter in his life, giving back to the community with the Academy, his acclaimed wrestling school, that have had people come up like Dante Martin, Julia Hart. And he's really talking about how this phase of his career is about giving back. And that's why being part of a show like this, being on the show for, I think it's the third year in a row, being one of the go-to people for it is so important because he really is focused on giving back. What he can do for the new generation coming up, what he can do to make life better. We talk about that. We talk about his kids. And if you thought you knew Ken Anderson or you knew his whole story, please listen to this. Mr. Ken Anderson.
None of you people can tell me to stop. Lower the lights down, hand over my crown, hand over my heart. I do this for my town, I do this for my crowd. So turn me up real loud. My time, none of you people can tell me to stop. Turning the track up, I'll never go back down. Hand over my heart, I do this for my town, I do this for my crowd. So turn me up real loud. My time, none of you people can tell me to stop.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. My name is Mike. This is another edition of the Wrestling Independent. As everyone knows, I like reaching out. I like finding and talking to the most interesting people. And I think I got one of those this week. We're promoting Midwest All-Star Wrestling. And we have, of course, Mr. Ken Anderson. Ken, how you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing excellent.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on. Now, I want to talk about them before we get too far into everything, because obviously it's an important organization. Midwest All-Star Wrestling, they have their big show coming up the 13th.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that real quick? I know it's proceeds go to a domestic violence shelter.
Yes.
So why don't you just kind of let us know about that?
Yep. I mean, Women of Nations, it's a, like you already said, a domestic violence shelter, which I think is a really good cause. The card itself is completely stacked. It's always a great show. I believe almost all tickets have been sold. Last time I talked to Dave last week, he had said there was about 200 tickets remaining.
Okay.
So if you want to get them quickly, please, or you'll have to watch it on Fight TV.
Which is probably what I'm going to be doing, because if it's on the Fight TV app, that way we got a better pool of people that we can pull from, get the people that just can't get there in person. And from what I'm seeing about Midwest All-Star Wrestling, it seems like they really are a promotion with a heart. I know I talked to Dave about it. He said that, this kind of came up with trying to figure out ways to help that community, help that shelter. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important, especially as, times are kind of changing and people are starting to realize that we need to do better. And I think this is a great way for, someone to contribute and donate and be able to help do that.
Yeah, I feel like what you just said is right. We're moving towards a society that cares more about each other. I feel like I don't really know that I'm sure there were shelters like that, but in a lot of cases When I was a kid, it was like, just toughen up, lady, you know, like.
Oh no, and I'm someone. Just a personal note about myself. My mom actually worked at a domestic violence shelter for about 30 years when I was growing up. So she just retired from that. So I know the kind of struggles that they go through, or at least I've heard about some of them. Now, obviously on the show we've got you. I know that Lawler is going to be on there. Kurt Angle. He really does have a stacked show for a local promotion for one that's really trying to get out there. So
Yeah.
How long have you been involved with Midwest All Star?
I mean, loosely, I guess it's been a few years that I've been. I've done a few shows here and there. I think I did the first Grand Slam, or maybe it was the second one. I believe it was the second one. And then last year, I was supposed to do last year's, but obviously it got canceled because of COVID. And Dave actually started one of the owners started to come to the academy, you know, my wrestling academy, because he wanted to learn more about the business. Which is a great, I've never heard another promoter do that, where because he was a promoter, he wanted to know as much about the business inside the ring and out as possible. So he came and, you know, tried to teach him everything that I know.
Which I do think is a sign of someone that's really taking it seriously, because I'm sure anyone that's watching this, anyone that goes to independent wrestling shows, there's so many guys that are just fly by night. They got like, you know, $10,000-$15,000 in the bank. They want to run a show, and then none of it really like even makes sense. So that's nice that he took the time to do that.
That's not the case here. He's truly passionate. All the people that are involved with MAW are extremely passionate, and they put on a great product. It's a great atmosphere and a good environment for a lot of my students wrestle for the company. And it's a place where when you get done training at the academy, you can go, you know, it's a place where you can work regular shows in front of a good crowd and know that you're going to be safe. And
that's a great thing with newer students. And I wanted to talk to you about the academy. And anyway, now, obviously COVID had to go on a little bit of hiatus. How long have you been doing the academy? Since 2016?
2006, December of 2016. So really 2017. But yeah, the last year and a half, we've been shut down because of COVID. We are still currently shut down, but we're getting ready to open up. Should be very, very, very soon.
Now, for people that may not know, who are some of the people that have stepped through the academy's doors? People that that have started to kind of make names for themselves out there.
So, like, we've got just a ton of students that work all over the Midwest, and but also Airwolf and Dante from AEW. Julia Hart,
who's another great talent on the roster.
Yep. And there was a case where Julia was training here. We had to shut down because of COVID. Cody opened up down in Atlanta, the Nightmare Factory, and rather than wait around, she went and made things happen. I know a lot of my students actually did that, and I'm super proud of them. And a lot of them are becoming successful because of that, I think.
And that's one of the things I've seen with a lot of the newer kids coming up is you really are seeing the young, hungry separate themselves from the people that are just kind of doing it for fun. Where this COVID, that's one of the things I've noticed kind of happen is there's almost like a shifting of talent where you're seeing those hungry kids try to come up. Now, with the academy, are you doing that by yourself? Are you still running it with Sean and the rest of them, or is that just you?
It's just me.
Okay.
We do have Greg Gagne comes in and trains from time to time, and you know, it's good to get that really old school veteran mindset. But yeah, other than that, it's just me. And then I have guest trainers that I bring in, former WWE stars. And
yeah, I see you brought in Booker T and some other people.
I brought Kevin Nash in one time, Shelton Benjamin, Colt Cabana, Mike Quackenbush. I mean, we've had probably 20 so far.
Okay, very
20
nice.
different. It usually happens every 3 months, 3 to 4 months, we'll bring somebody in, do a 2-day seminar, or 1-day seminar.
Okay, that's nice. And one of the things that I think really stands out is for wrestling, it's not necessary. A lot of who you're trained by says a lot about you, I think. And that's one of the things that I love about this new group of people coming up. They've got the Ken Anderson, they've got the Codys, they've got people that have been through the systems, because it really is a new style of wrestling than if we would have went back 20 years ago with being trained.
Definitely. And there are several good schools out there now. I mean, when I first started out, I was fortunate to I didn't know what I was getting into really. And I was just lucky that when I rolled the dice, I got 2 great trainers that knew what they were talking about. But at the same time, there was like 5 other schools in that area that had I gone to those schools, I would have been a backyard wrestler, really. So I was lucky. But yeah, you're right. Nowadays, there are several schools out there that are good and have people that have actually gone to the dance.
Now, let's talk a little bit about that. What initially got you into wrestling? Were you someone that sat around with your family and watched it on the weekends? Did you get into it with one of your friends? What was your draw into wrestling?
It was one of my buddies. It was in the mid 90s, 96, 97, when Austin was really becoming popular. One of my friends just kept talking about wrestling, and I pretty much put my nose up to it. And one night he said, "Dude, you just have to watch. There's this guy, Stone Cold Steve Austin." And I reluctantly watched, and I saw Steve drive out to the ring in a pickup truck. I think he had a six pack of beer on his lap, and just the way that he walked, the way that he carried himself, the way that he talked, I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And I started watching every week just to sort of see what he would do. And then I got sucked into everything else, all the other characters. At the time, WWF was like this, like everybody was over.
Yeah.
From Takamichi Noku, all the way up to Steve Austin.
And I think, I think kids today may not understand the level of being over, because as good as the stuff that was coming out, they also had a lot of junk storylines, but they were so good at the good stuff that people gave them leeway for the, like the Mark Henry hand and all that, and those kind of things.
Yeah, right.
Now, what was that moment? Because I feel like in a wrestler's life, there's 2 moments. There's the moment that draws you in, which for you was the Steve Austin, the pickup truck, the beer drinking, the attitude. What was the moment that made you say, I gotta do this for myself?
I've always been into acting and just entertaining and telling jokes at parties and things like that. And I was an athlete. I was into working out, and I was at a party one night, and a friend of mine was talking about, they knew somebody that had gone to wrestling school. And I was like, wait a minute, what? I didn't even know it was a thing.
And back then there wasn't, like we said, all the reputable people. There wasn't all of the, you had to know somebody to find out where school was.
Yep. And it was just something I never even thought about. Like, how does somebody get into that? And that was it right there. I went home that night and I started looking online, and I found a wrestling school down in Chicago. And I remember thinking, like, well, the closest one is going to be Chicago, because I was thinking all the major cities, and maybe Milwaukee, but probably Chicago or LA or something like that.
Yeah.
So I found the one in Chicago, and I emailed them, and I just said I was interested. And a few days later, I got a phone call from a guy named Mike Mercury in Green Bay. And he said, I got your number from, he had given, the guy in Chicago had passed my number along to him because he knew that he was starting up a wrestling school.
Okay.
And he said, I'm opening up a wrestling school, and here's the deal. I think it was $1,200 was the tuition. And I mean, he said, he had me come in and do like a tryout where I had to take a couple bumps and try to run the ropes and things like that. I'm telling you, I walked into that building, and it was in an old like Penny's, J.C. Penney,
Okay.
that
Yeah.
closed down, and it was just in the dimly lit back corner of the J.C. Penney's, and it was this low rider, rickety ring. The ropes were kind of sagging, and the canvas was all torn up, and it had duct tape on it in places, and there was blood stains all over it. And I remember just, that is so cool. Like, I was just in awe
Yeah.
that it was an actual wrestling ring, and that I was getting inside. And that was the first time I stepped through those ropes. I was like, I'm home, you know? And then that started a 6-year journey of learning and traveling the Midwest and connecting and sending tapes, being rejected, sending more tapes, going to seminars, stuff like that, and until I finally got hired.
And when you did get hired, when you were with the WWE, when was that first time where you're going through the ropes and you get that rush? Like, do you remember that first time where like you feel that connection with the fans? Like, what was that for you? What was that like?
Honestly, it was the night that I debuted. So I had been at OVW for 5 months, I think, 5 or 6 months at the time. And Paul Heyman came in, and I started doing the Mr. Anderson thing, announcing myself. And then that night, Paul had said, like, you're going to be the next guy out of here, I promise. And I was. And the WWE, the office wanted to see me at TV. They wanted to like just see what they were talking about. And so I went, and I was just supposed to do a dark match against Funaki. And I remember warming up in gorilla position, and Dave Lagana walked by, and he said, there's been a change. And I thought, oh, they cut my match, I'm not going to go on. And he said, this match is going to be televised. He said, we need to come up with a finisher for you because you're going over. Win the match, for those that don't know.
Yeah.
And then welcome aboard. And he like shook my hand. And I remember I wasn't even nervous. Like, I was nervous in the sense that I was like excited nervous, but I felt like this is it. I belong here now. Like, I just felt comfortable.
And so it was kind of that moment for you where it felt like that build up and everything was building towards that. And finally you get there and you're like, okay,
and,
awesome.
And all I had to do was go out there and do the best I could. And that was going to be it. And that's what it was. I came back to the curtain, and like Vince stuck his hand out. Great job. And he doesn't say much, especially to guys that he doesn't know.
Yeah, I mean, I know, obviously, I've never been backstage, but I've heard from people that there would be people in the company for years that maybe just say a hello to them here or there, and really doesn't get a lot of feedback that you might expect. Yeah. So that, especially your debut, that's got to be a good feeling coming back from him.
It was, and him and Arn Anderson and Johnny Ace all, complimented. And it was just, I remember Arn saying, like, congratulations, you got yourself a job, kid, and that was when I knew, like, okay, I'm gonna be here now. Now I gotta just shift gears. And then it was like somebody flipped the switch, and I was traveling all over the world. It was crazy. It just happened so quickly. Everybody always says, like, it happens overnight, but that's what it feels like. But it's the journey getting there doesn't feel like that at all.
Well, and I think that's like a lot of careers where it's like, it takes forever to get there. And I think especially with pro wrestling, it's a journey of love. It's a journey of a grind. It's a journey of, driving 200 miles and getting paid $25 and a hot dog and saying, thanks for coming, kid.
A hot dog and a handshake.
Yeah. And I think that is, so I think that there's a bigger passion behind it, and some people may not understand that, but once you get there, I think that the payoff for it, for the people that are able to get there, because not everyone does, that it's got to be an amazing feeling. And what do you say to the students as they come to you, or even prospective students when they tell you that that's what they want? What kind of advice do you typically give them?
I just be willing to do anything, you know, within reason. I'm not saying do illegal things and, you know, immoral things, but be willing to drive 15 hours to Nashville to wrestle, get paid $20, but and then drive back and go to work. You go to your regular job, because it wasn't about the money at that time. You know, I always looked at that grind as like when a person wants to be a doctor, he goes to school for 10 years or 11 years or whatever. You know, it's like he's not getting paid for that. But he's learning a valuable skill set. And that's me driving to Nashville and back for $20 was my college, stuff like that. So,
and what has, other than working with the academy, what's the past couple of years looked like for you? Because that one of the things I love is you know, looking over your Instagram, you seem happy, you seem at peace, you know, there's so much of you and your family on there. And so what's the past couple of years looked like for you?
that's it, family and the academy, really. I mean, this will be my first show that I've actually done in probably 2 years.
Okay.
So, but before that, it was, you know, I'd take a booking here and there, but for the most part, my passion's been the academy and just my kids. When my kids are here, I get to be with them, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I get to actually spend from the minute they get here to the minute they leave, I'm with them. So, and that's been cool so far. They're 7. Pretty soon they don't want to hang out with me anyways, but.
Yeah, I've kind of hit that point with my teenagers. They're just kind of, if I see them on the weekend for 10 minutes, that's a big thing. So I want to get Midwest All-Star promoted. I don't want to hold you for too long. So I just want to ask you 2 things. If someone is looking for the moment for a new wrestling fan, I'm trying to get them involved in wrestling. Give me a Ken Anderson match that you think is going to pull in that fan, something that might be the thing that makes them go.
One of my personal matches.
Yeah.
Mr. Kennedy versus Shawn Michaels from Armageddon 2007, maybe.
Okay.
That was one of my favorite matches, and or Kurt Angle Lockdown 2009.
What about those 2 matches stand out for you? Just what about them? What made them feel that extra special?
I guess for me, it was just the storytelling. Like when I worked with Shawn, we said, here's the story we want to tell. It had something to do with, he was working my arm, he was working my hand. He just stayed on my hand, and it just, we were able to keep that throughout the entire match. A lot of times when we say we're going to tell a story, it's a simple story, but if a simple story is done right, it can be really, really effective. And I always, when the finish finally happens, it's like when the people come up for that couple seconds, when they pop, that's where you go like, we got him, we did it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So when the crowd reacts the way that you had planned, whatever that is, whether you wanted them to be pissed or happy or sad or whatever that is, when they actually react that way. And then especially when they react a little more than you expected, that's when that's the drug.
And with watching stuff, going back on your career, if you had a chance to kind of go back to 1995, 96, you get a chance to talk to young Ken Anderson, and he's getting ready to watch Stone Cold Steve Austin. What do you tell him about what he's going to experience over the next, 25 years? What do you tell him things are going to be like? Or do you tell him anything about it?
Well, I don't know. That's a great question, actually. Um, I'd say just stay humble the entire time, because that which goes up has to come down eventually. And just remember that. And I'm not saying like I got a big head. I don't think I certainly didn't mean to if I came across that way, but but there was a point in WWE where I just thought like, I got a job for life. I'm going to be good, you know.
And I
And
think,
you, and I
think
started,
I'm sorry, keep going.
and I just started looking at it like just a normal job, and just like every other job in life, you could love your job, and within a few months you'll be complaining about things, you know. And then I wish my perspective had been a little different there.
And I think that a lot of that is, you know, experience. I think some of that is age, because, you know, and that's one of the things that I look back when I think about some wrestlers and you think about some of the stuff that they went through is, I think to myself, what would I be doing at 25, 26, 27 in the same types of positions? And so, you know, as somebody that has gone through some stuff and come out the other side, I love this idea that it seems like this part of your career is about giving back, helping out other people. And that's something that, to me, I always like seeing what people do once they've reached the top, and now what are they going to do to follow it up? And it seems like to me, that's kind of what you're dedicating yourself to doing.
Yeah, that was the plan from day one when we opened the academy. It was, you know, I didn't have contacts like I told you, when I first started out, I didn't know anything. I didn't know anybody. And over the course of those years, I made those connections, those friendships, and I learned a little bit from people along the way. And I just wanted to be able to have a place where people could come and train, and there were a lot of things that I learned incorrectly when I first started out. Tons of things, you know, that had I been told from day one, things might have been different. You know, it would have been able to be like streamlined a little bit more.
Yeah. And because even with wrestling, I think, you know, it's being put out there. And like I said, that chance of being able to be taught by someone who's been in that position, being able to be taught by somebody who's been to the dance, that's wrestled in front of those huge crowds and have made those crowds listen to them. I think that that's invaluable experience. And so, like I said, I don't want to keep you too long. I want to say thank you to Midwest All-Star Wrestling. I want to say thank you for everything that they're doing. I think that, you know, hopefully the Academy, how long are you taking people for this next session coming up?
So the training, I believe it's 6 months, six month increments.
Okay.
So the tuition pays for 6 months at the Academy, basically. And there's still a few spots open, but like I said, we'll be opening soon. We've got, I don't know, 8 students maybe right now that are signed up, paid in full, ready to go. We just have to be able to get that green light to open our doors again. So
okay. So we want to make sure that we send people to the Academy. If anybody comes on, we want to November 13th, Saturday. If you aren't in the Midwest area, if you're not in Minnesota area, right?
Yep, Minneapolis.
If you're not in the Minneapolis, Minnesota area, it's on Fight TV. If you miss out on tickets, Fight TV is going to have everything. And thank you, David, for hooking me up, and thank you, Ken, for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Would you mind if I put my website out there for the Academy?
Whatever you want to do.
Please, if anybody has any questions, contact us, the Academy at gmail.com, the Academy Pro Wrestling at gmail.com, or you can text 507-722-2776. And that comes right to my phone. It comes right to my wife's phone, and we can talk with you about what you'd like to do. So, and the thing is we honestly give everybody an opportunity. There are people who have stepped through our ropes that I just right away knew like they're not going to make it as a wrestler. I'll certainly still work with them, and I don't like give them any different treatment, but you know, just in my head, you make that snap judgment. They're probably not going to make it. And, you know, I had one guy, I like to tell this story all the time, but I had one guy who he just trained every night, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. He would take private lessons with me. He just had 2 left feet. And finally, after about 5 months, he said, maybe I should try reffing. What do you think? And I said, yeah, sure. So we transitioned to him refereeing, and he's one of the guy works everywhere now. He's always booked, super professional. So even if bumping and running the ropes doesn't apply to you, if that's not your thing, there is something in the wrestling business. If you are a fan of this business and you love this business and you want to contribute, there's something for you to do.
And there's 2 things that if I get the chance to do, I definitely want to try to ref, and I got to ring announce at least once. And obviously, you being the king of ring announcing, I'm sure you understand how that feels. Are you still doing the boxing ring announcing?
Not boxing, but for MMA.
Okay. What's the promotion you're working with for MMA?
It's North Star Combat.
North Star Combat?
Yeah.
Awesome. I want to say personally, thank you. I've looked up to you. I've been a fan of yours for years. So
Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yep.
Okay.
And if you ever need anything else, if you ever want me to come back on, just reach out to me.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely will. Thank you very much,
Okay.
sir.
Yep. Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Mike from the Wrestling Independent. I'm going to ask if you like this episode, if you like what we're doing, give us a click on the subscribe button. Visit us on the wrestlingindependent.com, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.